Hello, this is Easy, and in this little demonstration I'm going to show you how to increase your quality of your prints from a UV resin printer. The UV resin printer that I'm using or bought would be the Monoprice Mini Deluxe here. You can see the product number here, and basically the price, which may change. They're always running specials on it. Before I go on, there has not been a lot of testing of what I'm fixing to show you. I'm going to try to be accurate as I can be, so just don't hold me word for everything I say. But I kind of give you a general idea of what's going on and what you should be doing. Alright, this is based on, let me go down here, these images are based on for 2560 times 1440. Alright, your printer might have these, so this might work for your printer or your slicer. And well, it'd have to work for your slicer and printer at the same time. Alright, with that said, we're going to go to the next step here. And below the video, you'll have a zip file. Okay, you will need the zip file. And you'll need a zip file, and you'll also need Photoshop. If you don't have Photoshop, this is not going to work, period, for you. I'm using CS4 in this demonstration. So when you download the zip file, you're going to be extracting a couple things here. These got this resizers. This is an action script. You really don't need to know nothing about them, but if you know something about them, you can tinker through here. You'll have these resizers right here. These are exe files. I'll explain that in a minute. And I repacked this. This is I didn't actually write this slicer here. The person that made that is credit to that person or whoever made it. I just imported some profiles and some machine options here, so it's all packed together for you, so it's easy to access here. Basically, as you can see, I brought all the resizers out here, the EXEs. Okay, that's what I need because I'm going to be working with them. And if you're new, you can go open up the software. When you unzip it here, you'll go to the EXE, right click, and create a shortcut for your desktop. That's all you got to know on that. So as you can see, I kind of brought on my EXEs out here I'm going to be using, and here's a little sample I did, and I'm going to show you here in just a second. Alright, I have a creation workshop open here. That's in the zip file you'll be unzipping and be using also. This is something to remember. Scale big to print small. I mean, if you want good quality. So I want my image or my object actually large as I can. Okay, if I was to slice this as an example, it might slice out at 1,000 slices. If I scale it down by 50%, it might do that in half and give me 500 slices. So that's going to be a factor up to you how many slices you want. You will probably lose a little detail if you go down to 50%. This is kind of optional. I would not go any lower than 50%. Okay, keep that in mind, because most of my objects that I'm going to be printing are always going to be small. This is kind of designed for like miniatures. So basically, what happens when I scale this up and down, doesn't matter. I can zoom in and it look perfect. The problem with the program, well, it's not really a problem. It prints out images, okay, and once the images are set large, they come out pretty clean. But if I scale this extremely small, guess what's going to happen? It's going to get pixelated, and it's going to be hard for the printer to identify what you're printing. And I'll give you an example right here. Let me open this up here. This image here, I think, is extremely small. This has come by the default. I scaled it really small, and when I sliced it, this is what I got. If you're watching this video, go full screen, high quality, to kind of see what I'm seeing here. And basically, if I zoom this up, you can see if this goes to the UV resin printer, that's just not going to work. Okay, that's one of the problems is the Monoprice printers and most printers do not know how to resize images to keep the quality. That's why I'm going to come up with this little script here that you can do in Photoshop that's going to improve that. So basically, I did another one that I did in Photoshop, and I came up with the same size image with a whole lot better quality. So now when I scale that up, guess what that UV resin printer is going to see? It's going to print that, not that. Okay, that's not going to work there. And you can see how much better quality I am getting by using Photoshop to resize this. When I said this image here was small, I mean small. I had to put it on the printer itself just to display what the dimensions this is to compare it to something. So I'm going to give you a general idea how big this image is. If you think of a wooden matchstick, you know, the red tip on it, this square is about big as that matchstick. It's extremely small. I'm still be able to see the text kind of visible. But as far as it printing it, I have not tested it, and I don't see why I wouldn't. So this is something that, like I said, up for you to test out. So we'll go into the next step, and we're going to go over the configurations here. And I got it set to the monopriced DLP. This is the basic width and height. Okay, the UV printer can read this. Okay, if I switch to another profile, you can see it increases the width and height. This is, as you can see, it says 4K here. It's impossible to display 4K on a 2K LCD. So we're just going to kind of mimic it by resizing this. I'll show you in a second. We're going to resize this back to this size so the LCD can read it. Like I said, if you try to take this image and slice it and try to put it into the printer, you ain't going to be able to see it, or it's going to be way off, or something's not going to work. So keep that in mind, and I'll show you if you don't understand. Alright, what we want to do, we want to either use the DLP right here, the monoprice default one, or I like to use the next one, okay, just the 4K. As you can see, they're going up. And the difference in the two is actually when it increases the image size, or the canvas size, it also increases the image size. So when I reduce the image size, I'm going to get better quality because I'm starting off with a larger image. So this is kind of good to know, because the larger it is, the more clear it's going to be. Like I said before, the bigger the better. Alright, as you can see, I got one even bigger here. Alright, as you can see, it's getting extremely large. Alright, like I said, bigger the better, but the only problem is, and I want you to stay away from this one for a while and use this one. The reason why is because what happens is when you run this script, actually bigger is the worst, because everything's going to start lagging and could crash your system. So this is all up to you if you want to use this, and I'm not reliable for any kind of if you had any machine problems, because this will really put a stress on your machine when you start running this script through Photoshop. So keep that in mind. Alright, I'm going to go over the configuration slicing right here. You can see I got the drop down menu with the microns and stuff. As you can see, things have changed when I select certain things. These are defaults of 50 microns, and the default. I use a default one to calibrate. I'll show you here in just a second. But the ones that I installed here, 10 through 30, the things not to touch would be thickness. Okay, if you touch this, you are not using 30 microns. Okay, keep that in mind. Another thing not to mess with is this option down here called export option. You touch this, things are not going to work. As far as everything else, these settings are kind of like thrown in by random, might not even work. So this is up to you to adjust all this. Also, you can adjust your resin over here. So basically, don't touch the slice thickness and this option over here. Okay, and of course we know that on this build it's going to be bottom up. So just keep in mind things not to touch. Okay, we're going to be using Resizer 3, which is resizes it by 50% or half, or pretty close to that. And I want you to use that also, because this is going to be something that could help you out in the long run. As you notice, I have resizer 0 through resizer 5. 0 is going to make the smallest image, 5 is going to make the larger. So it's kind of obvious. 0 is the smallest, 1 is going to be the next highest, then 2, then half, the next bigger, then the biggest. Okay, keep that in mind. And like I said, we're going to use this one here by 50%, and I want you to use that yourself, so you may need to do a little tweaking. I kind of will explain that here. So basically, if I was to slice this here at full screen and I use that resizer at 50%, my print should look something like this when it's done. Kind of give you a general idea how that's going to look. Also, if we go into the configurations and let's say, hey, that same object I was using a while back before I used that script, the exposure time was 20,000, it's not working no more. Well, if you use 50% on that resizer, that could kind of give you the indication that you might want to decrease the amount by half or increase it by half. Well, basically decrease by 50% or increase by 50%, which would be the same thing. This will help you kind of troubleshoot if you're having problems with things not working correctly. Okay, now we're going to do a test run here. Alright, we're going to do like a calibration here. So we're going to do the 30 microns. We go over here. You can use the monoprice 4K. If you're new, you could still do this one here, even though it's default size of this right here. As long as you're decreasing the image size, you're also increasing the quality. So use either one. What happens is, like I said, the larger one's just going to put Photoshop a little strain on it. So, but like I said, again, the larger the better. So just kind of keep that in mind. All right, we're going to use that one there. Well, let's use this example for right now, and we're going to go to the configuration here. And like I said, I'm going to use one for calibration. We'll just switch this one over to default. As you can see, I have it set to 1. You're going to need to change this, because the larger the image, you might want to change this, because I don't want to sit here and wait for all these slices. I'm just going to calibrate this by putting this on the printer itself. So basically what you'll do is we're going to save this here. We'll just overwrite the same one. Press yes, and we're going to slice it. Alright, we're using the default setting and slice. I'm getting 3. See, that kind of gives you an indication how that slicer works. So I got 3 images, so I can use that example. But let's say I wanted a little bit more images. Let's see, I think 0. Let's try 700. Not sure that's even going to work. Let's just slice that and see what we're going to get. Oh, 4. Let's try 3. Getting 10 slices. Okay, 10's about pretty good. So we'll use the 10 slices here, and we'll take a look here, and it created a folder with the slices right here. All right, if we open this up, these images here are all the slices it produced. Okay, we're not really going to print this out. We're going to put this on the UV Resin printer itself and look at the display on here and see how this is going to look and calibrate it. If I right click over here, go to properties, it rendered these out at, you know, the default. You know, this is what the printer will take. Okay, so for this to work, I want to go ahead and resize this, because we're going to resize everything that I slice. Keep in mind, and very important, when we use these slicers, use them one time only for the folder. Okay, don't keep on resizing. All right, if you didn't like your resize after you got done, just make up a back copy and do it again. So let me kind of explain that here. So I got Photoshop open. It's best to keep it open right here. These are the action scripts that you can load in here, and see, they're kind of called like macros. You can kind of see what they do. Them are in the zip file too. So basically, I always have that open. Keep in mind, we are dragging the folder to the exe file, not the exe file into the folder. Sorry, I almost got that backwards. But anyway, we don't want to drop that in the folder. We want to drag the folder, and we're going to drag it right down there. And it's going to resize them all, and it's going to save them. As you can see, it's going to number 2 PNG. Now, if you get extremely a lot of images here, it's best to just minimize this window and let it finish up, okay? This helps keep it from crashing. I found that out. And basically, it's resizing these images as it's going through here, okay? So, let's go to the next step. Let's just do one at, let's see here. All right, we're at 2560 to 1440. Let's switch this over to the 4K here, and it's going to render these out here. So we're going to go ahead and press the slice here. You see, it's getting a little bit slower. So you can imagine if I had 500 in there, 500 slices, yeah, it gets pretty slow. If we go back here, as you can see right here, if I right click and go to detail, 3200 times 1800. These will not work, period, as I said before, at all into the UV Resin printer, is because this is actually not the dimension it can read. But when we use these resizers, it will help fix that, and it'll make it back to the default size. So we'll just take this one here and drag it back on to the 50% and let it do its work. As you can see, they're called droplets actually, and I'll let it go a little bit. And you can see that says 4 PNGs, and when it's done, it's basically resizing it, doing it like macros, then shutting down the image after it saves and loading another image. Alright, let's go ahead and go over here. Now if I right click, properties, now Monoprice can read the default image size for the LCD for this. Now it can be loaded up. So how do we load these up? Well, I'm using WinRAR, okay, and here's the CWS file that it produced when it sliced. If you open this up by double click, alright, as you can see, I got the evaluation copy of WinRAR. Alright, you can see my images in here. You can see the file size is around 37,000 something. Now we want to take our slice images and overwrite these, so we'll press add. We're going to go to our slices and select one, Control A, selects them all, press OK. And when I get ready to press OK, just keep an eye on the file size. They'll all change to let you know these images have been put back into this CWS file. And they have, okay. So basically when you're done, you just close this up. You will put this on a USB drive, install it on your printer, and load it up, and then you can see the dimensions and see what you're getting. Kind of, it's kind of like calibration. So we'll go on to the next step. I want to show you something, just in case general idea you want to know. We'll just switch to the default one here, 2560 by 1440. When I slice this, now like I said, it's going to keep the canvas size at this, and it's also going to keep the scale size at that, okay? We're going to keep that in mind, alright? Let's just slice this real quick. Then what we're going to do is just open one up in Photoshop and let you take a look at it. So if we go to the image size, 2560 like it rendered by 1440. Now we're going to cancel here, and now we're going to go to image and trim this. Alright, set to top left pixel colors here and all the settings you can see. Now when we look at the image size, alright, it says 695 right here. We'll just mark 700 as an eyeball right here. Alright, remember the 700. We're going to do another quick render here, but we're going to make it the largest, okay? Not only that it's going to make the canvas larger, it's going to make the image larger. I'm going to slice this. As you can see, it's taking a little bit longer time. Now you can imagine if there was 1,000 slices in there, it's going to take a while. You may need to split these images up into different folders when you slice these with the exe files, or resize them with the exe files, so keep that in mind. As you notice, I backed out of the image folder because it doesn't update while I was still in it. Meaning while I was in here and I sliced, I'm not going to see any changes until I go back to it. So we went with a larger one at 3840 by 2160. Okay, we're trying the larger one. We're going to compare it to the smaller one. All right, image size is 3840. All right, cancel that image, and we're going to trim that. If we look at the image size, all right, it's over 1,000 compared to the other one. So keep that in mind. The larger is the better. Look at here. I know they look the same here, but they're not. And I just want you to see that. So when this program resizes, you can see these are action scripts you can load. I'm not going to show you how to do this, but if you ever want to see how one works, and you know about Photoshop, you can just load one of these up and give it a test and watch the actions as it goes through it. Alright, we pressed on the 50 here, then we're going to press play, and it's going to go through all these little steps. As you can see, when it gets down here it says save, then it's going to close the image. Alright, then it's going to be done. So we go through there, then it's done. I had paused the video and rendered some more out. Like I said, these resizers here start 0 the smallest, then goes up. Now I'm telling you, 0 and 1, they can make the images extremely small, so it might be too small. But anyway, like I said, I've never tested it, so I just threw these in here. As you can see, there's little thumbnails here. And if I just drop this one here on the 0 and click it, give it a second, let it go through here. We're just going to go ahead and minimize this window. And I don't know if I said this before, but if you got like 1,000 slices in here and it's just getting too heavy on your machine, you can make a couple extra folders and just split these images up and put them all back together when you open up this with WinRAR or whatever program you use. As you can see, these images get pretty tiny. Alright, let's open one up and take a look at it. Alright, as you can see, that is extremely tiny. So I can read it here in the video, or where I'm seeing it. You might not be able to see it in the video. Let me do another one real quick. Alright, let's just slice this real quick. Sometimes when you're in this folder, you would not see any updates till you like back out of the folder, then go back in the folder again. So keep that in mind. So I'm gonna just try number 2 on this one. Just, you know, I think 0 and 1 is pretty small, so let's go number 2 here. And I'll kind of show you. Getting that here run anyways. All right. I'll just pause the video until it finishes. As you can see, it's finished, and we'll just click on one and open it up. And we'll just say image size here. That'll work on the LCD. Press image and trim. Okay. Now we want to go to view Axial pixels. And this is actually a pretty small image still, even though you may have a hard time seeing it in the video, but I can see it pretty clear as day right here. And what I see here in front of me right here, I can see it on the LCD just as good. It's going to be a little bit, well, not as good, but pretty close. But this is going to be a lot smaller, but it's like I said, I think this one's pretty much, the square here is about big as the head of a red matchstick, and I can still read the text. If I can read the text on the LCD and it can do that many microns, it should be able to print it. So what I'm saying is this should increase the quality, because what we're doing here is kind of faking putting 4K on 2K. We're using like 4K images and resizing them down to 2K. So it's kind of like a mimic the 4K, but it's really not 4K. So kind of keep that in mind. As I said earlier, the larger the scale, the more slices you'll get, and the smaller the scale, the less slices you'll get. If we do it by 50%, we should get half the slices of the larger one. So this is going to allow me to control the slices, okay? The way I'm hoping this will work is we're going to take this extremely large image, and when we get done, we're going to compact it to this, okay? I'm going to have a lot of slices, and I'm going to assume it should also make the layer lines less visible, because I'm going to have control over it. Another thing is, if we go to the controls here, if I'm correct, which I may not be, if I am using something, let's say at 20 microns, all right, and I'm resizing the image in half, I should get a 10 micron, which would be half of 20, a micron look on the UV resin object. Okay, when it's done printed, it should look like 10 microns, I'm gonna guess. Another thing is, I've used the default here, and I'm doing less slices. And there's another reason, I don't know if I explained it. If you press the slice button and you cancel it, it will produce the slices, but it will not produce the G code. You need to have it go all the way, or it will not work in the printer. Okay, keep that in mind. So my only thing that I think could cause a problem, and you could probably fix this in the G code, if I was to print something out with square, that would be square, perfectly square on all the corners, I'm not sure this would work, or could work, or it wouldn't work. So another option, if anybody knows what they're doing, probably could go into the G code and probably mess with some of these slice thicknesses. Okay, so as example, this is hypothetical. Okay, so let's say this here, after I printed at 20,000, the cube, okay, we're not talking this cube here, okay, we're talking a square cube. All right, let's say I have a square cube out there. When I got done printed at 20 microns, the cube wasn't square all the way around there. I could probably possibly go into the G code, and since I'm using the resizer by 50%, maybe I can increase the size and make this 40 microns without having to reslice it, and see what it does. That's just a general idea if somebody wants to do it. I'd like to see if anybody can come up with any good results, because I'm not very good at printing. I've been working on it, and I had an old typer printer that had the plastic filaments, and not all that happy, but this UV one printer with the resin, I'm kind of impressed with it. As I said earlier, you could probably mess with the G code in the CWS file to make it work better, or work like it should. Like I said, I haven't tried any of this, so it possibly could be in the G code. It also might be into the slicing profile, so this might be something you need to mess in one of them, either or, not just the G code. And keep that in mind. And I'm getting ready to show you a couple of things to square up if you're interested. So I'll have a link in the video here to, because these are hard to see in watching the video. I'll see if I can post you an image so you can kind of compare to see what I'm talking about here. This one here that you can't see very good, this one actually will be the default one, and I'll have this one here that you can see pretty good. That will be in Photoshop. if you're interested. Here's my printer, and here's a couple ideas that I came up with myself. Okay, I don't get too big headed. But anyway, not that big of a deal. I noticed they're putting tape around the LCD here, so it doesn't leak in there. That tape there does not, I don't think it's designed for anything that will leak. This is a painter's tape. They also, I would like to have black, but I use blue so you can see here. They actually make another one that's called frog tape. It's made for stuff not to seep through it, okay? Another thing is, if I put it across the LCD screen, it's not going to leave any sticky residue on there. If it does, I'll just wipe it off with some alcohol. If you see my cursor right here, you see this update, no sir. And that was my Adobe Photoshop or Adobe something trying to update. But anyway, I have a small thick glass here, got it at Walmart, I think 75 cents, pretty thick. I had put my resin in there, okay, and I like it small because it uses less space if I put my resin in there. And the reason why I put my resin in there is, you can see I have this fish aquarium pump, and it has a little air stone. It's like a little bubbler, and this is how I mix my resin, okay. I think it's a pretty cool idea. Another thing that I can use this for, when I'm not mixing with it, I also can clean my parts with it. Put my rubbing alcohol in there, turn the bubbler on. I think that thing was $12, and I'll clean my parts. This glass right here, okay, this is a coffee strainer, so I run that through. I buy these cheap little plastic cups to throw away. That's good. And what else? I use this goof off on the build plate. I think the build plate's got a coating on her, so I use it on the bottom of the build plate for the metal, so it cleans it really dry and sticky. If it gets on the build plate, I might eat it, so it's pretty strong stuff. And you might not see it in the video I'll show here in a second. I bought this 5-inch, I think 5 by something, these magnifiers, okay. These are the screens here, and I placed this over the LCD. You can see one down here where my cursor's flickering. I have it over the vat, and it's a perfect match, okay. You can get them on eBay, and you can check these out. They're pretty cheap. And what I'm trying to use this for, you could probably use them for a lot of stuff. I'm trying to magnify the light, okay. It will magnify the image, which would be nice, that somebody could come up one day and have all their prints print large, then have this magnifier be adjustable on here, so you can adjust your size on a fly from the printer, then happen to reslice it. So that would be a good idea, where you could just like move this up and down to go ahead and resize your objects that you want to print. Okay, that is, I think, a pretty good idea. Alright, so next step here. Basis different view here, you know. There's still the air with a bubbler, and this, as you can see on top here a little bit better, you can see this magnifier. I think it magnifies at 300 times. And like I said, on this example, I've had this, it matches up perfect to this vat. And I put this over top of this vat, and I drill the hose according to where the vat holes are at, so this can slide through. And it fits very tight, so make sure when you drill through there that the drill is the exact same size as the vat holes, because if you don't and it's tight, here in the middle it might warp up because it's not letting it stretch apart. So keep that in mind. Alright, as you can see down here where the tapes, it's sitting on there, it's got a little black outline. This is the magnifier that magnifies at 300 times. And here's another idea I'm coming up with. As you can see, here's the LCD display. I notice getting a lot of light is supposed to go through the image only, you know, for the UV. And as I'm trying to do something similar to this magnifier, I want to magnify the light to increase the speed of the resin drying or being cured. So to do that, I notice we're getting a lot of light that's coming through that's not directly on the image. So what I'm doing here is, as you see, here's this example of the image, which is a Nikon by Monoprice, that's displaying. and on the outside I can see some light. Okay, I think I'm losing some amplification here of the light being lost because it's going not directly on the object. So how can I fix that? As you can see, I put more tape around here to block the light from coming through and making it push up more into the image itself. This should increase not only the curing time, but also should increase the speed of printing, I'm going to assume. So as you can see, I have the tape and I have the area that I got blocked off that I calibrated, and this is what I'm going to be printing with. As you can see here where the LCD's off, and this is the area that I kind of cropped off here. This is what I'm going to be printing. Here's another one that I did with that filament. I don't know if you're interested in this, but I used ZBrush, and I have never seen any slicer do this, but I made a plug-in for a slicer. Well, you can pretty much print any size on any size printer. This print on the printer itself prints at 8 inches by 8 inches, and I actually got to print me a 24 inch by 24 inch over here on the ground. Exact same thing I printed on this printer here. But what it does is it slices this image up into quarters. I can slice it up. I can make this image big as I want. The only downfall is that you got to glue these pieces together. So it's kind of a cool idea. I wish somebody would come up with a slicer that would divide your object, let's say, into 4. It's like straight up and down here, like a cross. Then what it does is it takes one corner of it, puts it in the center, then scales it full size, then you print it out. Then it does all the other pieces. But anyway, I think that's going to wrap it up. Video tutorial's done. I'm going to have a link below the video. It will have the zip file, and I'll post a pic of the resolution so you can see a little bit better, because I don't know if you can see in the video. Thank you. Bye.